Hey, welcome back everybody. Today we're going to do a detailed video on converting the Powermaster in a Buick Grand National to a vacuum brake, also known as the vacuum brake conversion. So there are a series of steps you want to take, and let's move over to the bench. Okay, the first step is you want to obtain your parts. So there's nothing special about these parts. You can buy them in kits that are like on eBay and Etsy or wherever, but you can get a considerable savings if you buy from an online place like Rock Auto. So what you would do in this case, I ordered from a 1987 Buick Regal with the 5-liter. Okay, even the 3.8 carbureted is all the same parts. So you're going to get a power brake booster. These come in reman and new. I like the remans because I had a buddy that bought the new and it was a little funky with fitment. So these are original GM parts. They'll look perfect under the hood when you're done. This is an AC Delco brand new master cylinder. Okay, there's a gasket installed that goes on here. This was not part of, the car in the the Buick GM catalog, but when you took apart other cars, these were back there, and this helps keep the moisture down from the firewall and stuff. You're going to need 1 T. These are 3/8 T's. I got these off of Amazon, but there's also black plastic. You're going to need about 3 feet of 3/8 vacuum hose, and this is the piece de resistance, the brake pedal from a vacuum car. So these are available in Regal, Monte Carlo, Grand Prix, the El Camino, the Caballero, the Buick Century, the Bonneville, the Malibu. I think there's a couple more. Did I skip one? Cutlass, of course. And just an interesting note, you can see how cheap GM was. They only painted part of the pedal. So that brings us to our next step. So step 1, buy the parts. At the end of the video, I'll show you the screen for ordering them. Everything here except the pedal was $175 shipped. So when you get this brake booster, it comes in plain metal, and it has an oily coating of cosmoline on it. So you want to take some brake cleaner, strip that all down. You want to get it as clean as possible. And then to paint it, I used this Fusion paint and primer. But it's been dry for a while. This is not resistant to brake fluid, okay, or any kind of solvent you might find under the hood. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to do the final coat with this truck bed coating, okay? And I can show you what that looks like because I'm working on a different car that has this. So that's what it looks like, and this is kind of a rough finish, which I like, but you can get a lot of stuff rubbing around there, and if you get a little splash of brake fluid or anything, this will survive a little better than when you go to wipe it off. So we'll go back to the bench. So in this step, I'm gonna paint. I'm gonna clean this rust up off of this. This is gonna get some paint too. And then while that paint is drying, you have several steps that are adequate enough time to let these parts dry, especially if you have a nice sunny day. So that's what we're going to do. Okay, we're out at my paint booth, which is a junk Toyota Camry. So I'm going to be painting the pedal with the Krylon Fusion paint and primer in one, and then I have this oriented so that I can rotate it and it's not sitting. So this position right here is the top of the car. So this is the passenger side, and this is the driver's side. This is the most visible. So you want to do some little coat. Oh, but I forgot one thing before we start. So hold on a sec. Sorry about that. So that brake booster has this in the front. Okay, so this goes like that. You can pry this out. This is your vacuum check valve. This is the little boot, and then there's a grommet in it for this grommet goes for this. Okay, those all got to come out to get a good paint job. I don't like painting over that stuff, so this all easily comes out and it all goes back together. So you want to make sure you pick your weather right. I mean, this truck bed coating dries pretty fast, and you really don't need a whole lot. Try not to get any on the thread. And when you're doing painting with the base coat, you really want to get in these crevices here. That collects water and fluid and stuff, and it rusts there. So try not to get any in the hole too much, but you want to just get it that it's prevented with rust. The whole master cylinder covers this area anyway. You don't see very much of it. This looks pretty good, so I'm leaving it at that and moving over to the brake pedal. Got a pretty windy day today, so. Try not to put too much paint on that because we're going to clean that up, make it shiny, and put a dab of grease on that. All right, let that dry for now, and let's go in. Okay, now, while that paint is curing, there are a few steps we need to do. Now, let's address what you'll see in getting access to the pedal. Okay, so the pedal is way under there, and you got to squeeze under. You're going to be under there for a while. So if you're a larger person, take the extra 15 minutes to take the seat out. Okay, I don't have that issue, so I'm leaving the seat in. Now underneath the dash is a cover for the fuse block. This car, it's been removed already, so those are just 7mm screws that drop out. Okay, the next step that we have to do is remove the fluid from the reservoir, and that we do using a turkey baster. And then when that fluid is emptied out, you got to go into the driver's seat and press the pedal. I'd say press it like 10 to 12 times. And what that does is release all the fluid that's in that accumulator back into the reservoir, and then you suck that residual out. So this is what's left in the reservoir after removing it with the baster. So I'm gonna hit the pedal and see what we got left. So I'm gonna throw this lid back on. I'm not gonna snap it. but I don't want fluids splashing all out. So it filled up maybe about a quarter of the way, and you can see this is not as clear. I don't know if that's mixed with nitrogen gas or whatnot, but that's not clear. Put that right here. Now the one disturbing thing I found about this car was the brake light's not working, and I have to troubleshoot what that's about. I was driving this car around. It stopped well. Some of the problems you can have with the Powermaster are when you put the key on, engine not running, the pump will run every few seconds, and then that causes the pump to get hot, and then it fails soon after, and that means you have a leak down. And this pressure switch right here is reading that the pressure is low, and then it'll, you know, kick on. This was subject to a recall, so there's the different color. This was gray. If you have a black one, that means it's super original and it should have been recalled. The other thing that goes wrong with them is that the motor windings go bad and it keeps popping fuses. So both of those issues are a problem, and for peace of mind, you know, even when I was driving this thing around, I live in kind of a tourist area, and you get people that stop short because they, you know, not paying attention and stuff, and every time I had to hit the brakes, literally, it was making me paranoid. So even though this was running well, I want to change it out. And if you saw my other video on the guidebook, it does have a leak at the bottom, so it is wet on the bottom, and we'll see that when we pull out the unit. Okay, next step in this process is I'm going to disconnect the battery, and not necessarily in cause of the Powermaster, but the doors are going to be, you want your doors open the whole time, and I don't want to drain the battery by the dome light and stuff like that. And then there is that little footlight under the dashboard on the driver and passenger footwell, and that could blind you. So what I use a headlight to work under there. So I'm going to disconnect the battery, and we're going to move on to our next task. Okay, if I didn't mention before, you're going to need some brake fluid. Okay, all right, so it's not going to be all that practical to get under the dash with the camera. So let me show you on the bench of kind of what the layout is. So this is what the brake pedal looks like, and this is mounted up, you know, say that's the inside of the car. And so let me lay it down, and you got, there's 3, sometimes 4 of these nuts. So the exception might be this hole, because this is where the under dash harness is held on by the stud, and sometimes they use a speed nut, which is always fun to get off. So leave these alone for right now, but these are 15 millimeter, and then this is what you have to work for. So when you're under the car, under the dash, this is pretty much going to be your view. You're not going to see much, but this is an 18 millimeter and this is a 16 millimeter. And what I like to do, so this is going to be your view from underneath the dashboard. And if you have one of these ratcheting boxes, this is great. So you want to orient it so you got loose here and this here, And now this is so much easier on the bench, as you could imagine. Okay, and you just keep going with that. You push that out. Now you have to take out this cotter pin, and there's a washer and a wavy washer on there. This is what's attaching to the eyelet on the brake booster. So I just wanted to show you that on the bench, because it's really the best way. You know, unless I had maybe a little mini camera to show you what's going on. But that being said, I will show you, and we'll get under there. But I'm not going to be really able to work while doing the camera either, so I'll spare you that grief. Okay, so let's get in there, and I'm gonna rotate up so see, it doesn't want to really focus even. Yeah, it doesn't want to focus, but up there you can barely see. That's where your 16 millimeter gotta go. And then, you know, you got a lot of these wires, and that goes to the side to get yeah, see what I was saying with the camera work? It doesn't work out too well. So let me see if I could get a picture. That's one of those 15 millimeters I was talking about. So if you have a really long extension, that would help. But let me get this pedal out, and we'll come back. Okay, we're back on solid ground. So that hyperlapse is like 8 seconds. And this probably took like 3 minutes. If you're not experienced, it'll probably take you more. I have a lot of experience taking these pedals out, because I used to grab them from the junkyard. But you'll see in the video I used a pair of dikes, and I used that to take out this cotter pin. And now this bolt, it goes through as such. Now when this nut comes off, you're gonna have to push this out, and it's pretty tight, so you might have to reach over the column, crane your arm over there and push this out before it'll come down. So what I like to do, I like to loosen this bolt first, then work on this, and then drop this all down. Now if you have a lot of aftermarket wiring, that's another problem, you know, because you got more junk in the way. So let's compare the two pedals. So looking, you can see some obvious difference. This is the one I just took out, and this is the Powermaster pedal. By the way, I believe this is the same pedal they use for the Hydro Boost in 84, 85. But if you want to see, let me pan this up. Right, for orientation of why this doesn't work. You know, look at where the pin is. Look at where the pins are. That's why it doesn't work. It doesn't line up at all. Okay, so having this pedal makes this conversion so much easier. And so we take this, and we don't need that anymore. Okay, and as you can see, this pedal right here, very nice shape. Your car might show a lot of rust and whatnot, but this is another vacuum pedal. Okay, now we're going to move on to the booster nuts, and for that I use a really long extension with a ratchet and a deep well socket. So once again, you're not going to be able to see much, but we'll get under there. Okay, so I got the 3 nuts out, but what's hemming me up a little bit is that speed nut there, right there. Zoom in. I honestly haven't seen one of those before in a while, so I'm just going to use some needle nose and wiggle it off. Okay, there's the last nut under that, and I had to really mangle that speed nut to get it off. Okay, so all the Powermaster to firewall bolts are studs are unscrewed there, and now we're ready to start on this side. So we got our electrical connection here and here, and then our 2 brake lines. So let me get the tools and we'll set up the camera. Okay, before I start, I'm gonna put some little bit of penetrant on there. Naturally, this step, you don't want to mess up these brake lines, because now that puts the whole project on a halt. So I'm going to disconnect these 2 electricals, and you can see she's loose. It's being held by the so these are 9/16. Then I use a flare wrench and then just a regular wrench to get going. And then to catch some fluid, I'm just gonna put this under here for posterity. And they're both the same size, so 9/16 fits very snugly. You could really use a 15 once these are broken loose, but the last thing you want to do is round them off also. Now you could do this step before you work on the firewall. I mean, the firewall gives you a little more thing, but I wanted to minimize the amount of fluid leakage. So, and with that, so I might have something catching. Let's see, I can't see too well here. This, let me show you what I got. So this harness is holding it back. So let me disconnect that. Okay, so there's a few wires in the way, and this yeah. We got the speedometer cable. There's all that stuff. Yeah. See how she was leaking? Let's go over and look. Let's see where it's leaking from. I don't know, but she's pretty wet, so this is overdue. This is probably a problem waiting to happen. So under here, we'll just clean that up a little bit, and you could throw the booster in with the gasket, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So okay, we're gonna work on the reassembly of the brake booster, because that's the next thing going in. I cleaned up the firewall, so the first thing we got to do, I'm gonna lube up this. Okay, and then this has I'm gonna reallocate some of this grease. I'm gonna add some to this pin also, some on the tip, because this is where just not a lot, you're not just drowning it in this grease, but that's where the back of the master cylinder pushes in. And then I'm putting some grease on here just to keep it from sliding out. And that goes in like that, and you want to push, but nothing really crazy. Okay, and then the back, you have this foam, just looping that up to keep the shaft from rusting. And then you should have this little dust cover in your bellows, and I'm gonna put a little protector in on this, because this is the last time this will see the light of day. So I'm putting a little silicone protective grease on there, and this simply is pushed on. Well, let me go like this first. Goes like that, and goes like that. So now that's ready to go in. Let's take our gasket while we got it and put it on there. Okay, so let's go over to the car. So this is your speedo cable. You have a ground wire, there's a vacuum line, and then this harness. Now this harness has to be pushed down, so this is an aftermarket wire, if you couldn't tell. That I'm gonna kind of push out of the way. This harness goes under the booster. All right, I'm gonna get this out of the way too. I'm gonna remove this. This is no longer needed. I think I'm just gonna leave this ground here. But yeah, excuse me, wandering with the camera. But you can see the firewall is in good shape. Sometimes if you get a leak, you know, it could be bad. So I did throw some touch-up paint on that because it was leaking fluid and that was eating the paint off. So I'm gonna remove this right now because it's not needed, and I don't want it to be pressing up too much. I mean, you're not gonna get this super far down, but enough, because you do have the speedometer cable holding it up. Okay, and then I'll probably just remove this with a 7mm. Okay, so to help keep the wires out of the way, and or rather the cruise control cable and these hoses, I got a zip tie going up. This is going to be pushed down, and the booster's going to go in there. But while I have the room, I'm going to tape these up all the way down to the bottom. Most people leave them there. I mean, you could cut them, but this is also handy because this is kind of a not high voltage, but a pretty thick positive cable you could use at a pretty good ground right there. I mean, you could, if you ran alky or what other accessory, this is good without having to, run a new wire to the fuse block. And this is on its own fuse. It's like a 30 amp fuse. So I'm going to tape these up and we'll come back. Okay, we're going to go in with it and make sure you have it oriented right. So now we go on the inside and fasten the 4 nuts. Okay, that's in nice and solid. Before you going in, you want to make sure you're not pinching anything underneath. I spared you guys the install of the nuts. It's pretty easy, and actually I wound up using my my 3/8 mini impact. So now the next thing we got to do is install the pedal, and I'll show you what we need to do before that. Okay, with the pedal we have this these are little bushings. All right, this was from the original car behind us. This was from the donor pedal, so it's kind of rusty. I'm gonna go with the nicer stuff. All right, so how this works is you get a bushing on either side, and then there's a little bit of grease that I put on them, and that keeps it from sliding out. Okay, all right, so now when you slide this up into the area, you got to put your bolt in, and then your nut. Okay, and then you could start them, but don't tighten them, because then you really should attack the pedal with the eyelet on the back of the power booster. So once again, I'm really not going to be able to get you in there with the camera, but since you uninstalled it, it really shouldn't be that hard. Now, don't forget you have this little setup here, but you could come back and get that. So there we go. Okay, and just if you guys were wondering, the bolt went in from the driver's side and the nut was on the passenger side. I'm sorry, I got that backwards. I meant to say the bolt goes in from the passenger side and the nut is on the driver's side. So there's a little bit more room on the passenger side. You got to stick your arm over. So, like I said, I'm not gonna be able to show you the tight space install, but if you got it out, you can get it in. Okay, so if you made it this far, you got past basically the hardest spot, but just for a technique, I'll show you. This is the old pedal, but what I did was, when I got under there, I put this through the eyelet. Don't put on the cotter pin yet, just in case, but that'll keep this thing from dropping. And then go in with the nut. the bolt and work the nut on. And it's so tight and hard to see up there, you can actually get it through and not realize you're in there. So make sure when you're starting it, you give the pedal a little tug that it's in place, and then you could go by hand and tighten this nut up. Okay, now the danger of snugging this up before putting this dowel through the eyelet is once this is tightened up, you probably won't be able to manage getting that eyelet through this dowel. So make sure you put it through the dowel. Don't worry about the cotter pin until it's, because you have to move this up and down a little bit and wiggle it. It's a lot easier getting out than it is getting in. You're definitely going to get some cuts and stuff from the back of there's wires and sharp connectors up there, but it's really, it took me like 10 minutes, taking my time, but it's definitely, there is some frustration involved, and I really feel sorry for you if you have large hands, but oh well. Okay, so our next step is bleeding this master cylinder. So there's a couple of ways of doing it. The AC Delco came with instructions. There's the plug version, and if you need to pause because you don't have it, but basically what you do is you put it in a vise, you wait till the fluid comes out of the two hose connections, and then you put those plugs in there, and you cycle the piston until you don't see any more air. And then the other way is using the bleeder tubes. That's a little more involved. I mean, I have the capability of doing that, with these old things, but I'm not. I'm going to use the top version. So let me set up for that, and we'll go. So this is how I have it set up in my vise. I'm using the mounts here to push against the metal. I'm not really trying to clamp this body. This is only aluminum. You don't want to trim that. So one interesting thing, there's some kind of little fluid in there, so I'm going to hit that with some brake cleaner. I have unsealed bottle, and so I need to figure a way to set this camera up because this is the highest it goes. So all right, so let's clean out the interior of this thing. Get that cleared up. Little piece of lint there. Oh, look at that. A piece of paper towel. I'll be. I don't want to put too much in there. So this is a step bore. If you read those instructions, this is a stepped bore master cylinder. So you want to stroke it like 1 inch and then wait 15 seconds. So we're waiting for fluid to come out of these side. And just these are different sizes, so this one goes on the rear and this one goes on the front. Don't mess these up. Be careful when you're putting them in. I've seen these blow out because of you know, they were cross-threaded or used several times. You could get steel ones of these, but yeah, we're gonna wait. You see it bubbling? I'm gonna pause from now and bring it back when I got fluid coming out. Okay. I discovered by hitting the master cylinder, it speeds up the bleeding a little bit. Okay, you could see I got some fluid coming out there, so let's get these on there. All right. And I'm gonna snug these down. And these are 15 millimeter, by the way. The thing wouldn't fit. So, according to the instructions, use a tool to slowly depress the master cylinder for 3/4 to 1 inch. For step bore master cylinders, wait 15 seconds between each stroke to avoid aeration of the fluid. Continue until the piston cannot be depressed more than 1/8 inch and no air bubbles are visible in the I'm going to count to 15. And I'm going to top it up a little bit. I saw it drop. I don't want to put too much in there so I'm not spilling it when I bring it over. And this is what I'm using to press it in. I'm getting less and less stroke, and that's what it's saying is indicative once you only can move it a little bit. I'll put a little more in the back. I'm still getting air in that back one. Make sure these aren't leaking on the side. Your 2 plastic plugs. Still getting a lot of bubbles in the back. I know a lot of people skip this step, and I don't think it's too smart. You can do it on the car. You know, if you have 2 people to see one pressing the pedal while the other one observe. But if you got a really nice paint job, I don't know if you want to risk these blowing out. You might want to use the other method with these the old lines. So I'll be back. I'm gonna finish this off, or pause it and show you what it looks like when it's done. Okay, it took a few more pumps, but really not getting. You want to push it nice and easy, so it doesn't shoot you in the face. But all right, we'll come back when we're ready to go on the car. Okay, I got the lid on. I gave it a couple of more presses until it said it would only give 1/8 of an inch, and maybe a couple more bubbles came out. But now you got a heads up here, because these lines, they're gonna be you're gonna need to bend them to fit. See how close they are in the master cylinder, and kind of how far they are. So they got to be bent a few inches. It's not horrible, but what that introduces is the chance for you to cross thread, because they're going to be at an angle. So the nicer you can do this, the better. So I'll set up the camera and we'll get at it. Oh, one other thing that you'll need, sorry about that, but you need 2 of these nuts for the master cylinder to the booster. Now, they are on your old Powermaster right there, okay? Right, one on each side. You could do that while this is in the car and then take this off separately. I happen to have 2 of them, so I'm just gonna leave that as is. So what I'm gonna try is I'm not gonna tighten the bolts on the booster, but I'll just position them, and then I'm gonna get some rags, absorbent red pads to put under there. So it seems like the small one isn't too hard to get into place. No, of course, I got my spare wrench on hand. But you see, I was able to move the master cylinder around without, because it wasn't locked into place. So, let me pause to get my wrench. Okay, I got my wrench. And like I said, this is a 15 millimeter, so that you could get these plugs out, but then it's like you could still use it to tighten the fitting because it's rapid. So and you don't want to force these. You want to get hand tight as much as you can, and then proceed with caution with the wrench. And you see the 15 allows you to fly on here pretty fast, so don't snug them with this. Once you feel it stop, like that's it, move to the 9/16 and then the flare. Alright, snug them up both, and then these two nuts on them, the master cylinder. Okay, that's all snugged up. I'm looking for my brake cleaner, but make sure you check try to observe any leaks, but resist the temptation to go in and press the pedal now, because there's air in these lines and it could be sucked back up. So just don't touch any of that until you're ready for the bleed procedure. Okay, but that concludes the major install. Now we're just going to run the vacuum, and we'll be back. Okay, so hooking up the vacuum, there are a couple of different options. So here's some plastic tees. I bought a brass tee, so I threw a little paint on it. You should have some zip ties, or if you want to use those worm gear clamps, but I'm going to use the zip ties, and then some 3/8. You see, this is fuel line, PVC, and vapor, so this is pretty impervious to oil and gas, and I've been using this for years. It works fine. So what we're going to do is let me go over to the car and I'll show you what we got, the two different options. Okay, so option one, what I'm going to be performing on this car is we're going to tap into this right here. So the T part is going to go down, the right branch of the T is going to go this way, and the left branch is going to go, you can go either behind the coil pack or between here, and then it's going to go right to your check valve. Okay, so now the other option is this. So you have to go to a vendor and you buy this vacuum block with the brake booster. Now this is from the Turbo, 1989 Turbo Trans Am. They did it this way. Okay, and this block is you know, kind of popular. I personally not crazy about it. It puts another ugly line up top, and then you're kind of messing with these. These do not like to come apart, so it's kind of opening a whole new thing up. So you have those two options. So I'll go back and show you how I'm going to do mine now. So on the bench, I pre-prepped this this hose. So this is going to that vacuum connection. I made it a little longer than I need. This is going to the PCV valve. I'm running it a little longer than I need. So then this goes to my brake booster. I'm not cutting that. Okay. So then while I'm here, I'm gonna zip tie them so I'm not bent over the fender doing it. I busted a glove already. And I could get these positioned to where they're nice. And get a good tug. Get this nice and snug. I like to trim those with a razor, since then there's no sharp things to get you later. Okay, and just to rough it in, let's see what I got here. Razor's seen better days. And I'm gonna wrap this right under. Put that on lightly. Then I gotta come over here. It's kind of hard to see, sorry. But right here, this is what we're tapping into. So I'm going to remove these plugs. I could probably just pull them over. Let me get that zip tie. I mean the bungee cord. Okay, so I'm gonna see if this will slide off. Let me get some pry tools. I don't know if you could see so well. Let's see. Yeah, let me. Oh, yeah, this is moving easy. And then, so it has one of those aftermarket PVC check valves. the grommet's in good shape. So now, judging from that, I got to trim right here. That's what I'll do. Let me degrease this first. Also going to shoot some brake cleaner on that grommet and stick my finger in there with the rag. Like I said, if you're a mechanic with large hands, it's not so fun. Alright, got that cleaned up. So I'm gonna basically use this to trim right there. Zip tie on this PCV valve. Where'd my knife go? Did I walk away with it? Yeah, I walked away with it. Now we need to trim this, so we need to take off maybe 3/4 of an inch. This helps if you have a really sharp blade. And I put my zip tie on the pipe already. Alright, yeah. It's going to need a little lube. I got dielectric grease. You get the idea. I ain't trying to run out the clock. Okay, so that's all routed, all zip tied at all ends. I got it running behind the plenum and over to the vacuum inlet check valve. So that's about it. I hope this helped you a lot, and you know, it's a great improvement. Because, you know, like I said, I was driving this thing here and there, and always in the back of my mind was the threat of that thing failing, and then it would come to the front of my mind when somebody in front of me would panic stop. So now the last thing you want to do, these are available also. These are the new brake pedal pad, and that's all part of the parts list. So let's walk over to the parts list and I'll get you some numbers. Okay, so parts list from the top. This is Rock Auto. Okay, I'm not they're not sponsoring this. I just use them for a lot of stuff. So the Dorman T, the 3/8 T, the gasket, the pedal pad, the the master cylinder and the brake booster. The brake booster, the one nice thing about buying this from them direct is that your warranty is under you. So I believe the master cylinder has a 2-year warranty and the brake booster has a 1-year. There is a core charge on that brake booster, but it's only $12, so most people eat it. So $155 plus 13 is $180 after tax and shipping. So your other thing is getting the pedal. So you could look on the boards. I have a few pedals that I usually sell on eBay. Those go for $50 to $100. Other kits, they do sell a little pin that you have to drill your old pedal and then kind of weld it. It slows down stuff, and I'm not a big fan of that. The other pedal's the way to go, especially if you don't have a drill press and you're drilling that with, you know, a hand drill, and, you know, hopefully you have sharp bits and lots of fitting. So, yeah, that's about it. Okay, so I can't bleed this right now. I'll have somebody in the shop assisting me tomorrow, so I'll get that all taken up and done the right way. When you bleed it, remember you start from the passenger rear, driver rear, passenger front to driver front in that sequence. So, all right, have a nice day. Thanks. Like and subscribe. Comment if you have any conversation to add.